Hi guys, I'm here to discuss with you today the coming of the New Age. It's here, and there's no denying it. There might be the few that still would like to speak in terms of the way it used to be, the way the world used to be, the way the nations used to be, but it's pretty obvious to most of us that everything now is changing. For many years now I've been asked when I speak publicly about the so-called end of the world, and I have downplayed it somewhat because, well, there's no reason to fuel mass hysteria. And yes, is change the only constant? Of course it is. Is the only, the only permanent thing impermanence? Yes, but an end is always a new beginning. We've officially left the age of Pisces, and the age of Pisces, which was the last 2,000 years, was the age of the Messiah, the age of fishes, and that was the symbology of that age. But as of 1960, we've officially entered into the age of Aquarius. And although many, maybe the, let's say, for lack of a better description, the hippies of old, looked forward to it for its flower power and its beautiful energy, which of course it does have. But because it's ruled by the energy field of the planet Uranus, one also has to expect it has its flip side, which sometimes creates chaos. But from chaos comes creation. That's the way the Bible begins. So the first thing I want to do is, of course, allay fears. There's no reason to be afraid. We're going through a lot of earth changes, and we've noticed it initially. Way back in the 1500s, they were reporting the evidences of crop circles. In the 1700s, there was more documentation of crop circles, but it wasn't until about the 1970s that we were starting to see these elaborate forms being created. One of them that struck me as quite unusual was a symbol of the sun and all of the outer planets, including the asteroid belt, but in one orbital ring, what was missing was the planet Earth. But again, this is symbology. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is the planet Earth and its structure itself that's missing, but rather, perhaps the world as we've known it now will indeed shift. Since the tsunami that hit Japan, and these past statuses I've been putting up in profile and videos have portended that these things are going to continue to occur. But the lesson here is especially how the brilliant and beautiful Japanese are behaving under the auspices of something that could be quite horrendous. They are embracing structure. They're loving each other. They're helping each other. They're creating almost a new world order. They're teaching all of us a great lesson. We're about to go through many, many more earth changes. But this is a very important lesson to grasp from these people is you don't have to hurt each other. We can work together. All of our consciousness now, all of our consciousness is expanding. Yoko Ono had appeared recently on Piers Morgan's show, and she's the epitome of the Japanese culture. Grace under pressure. It's why one of the leading minds of our time, John Lennon, was so taken by her higher consciousness that Aquarius Pisces, old spirit energy of understanding, so that the grace she was able to emanate on film as she's describing her resilient people embracing courage, frankly, it meant the world to me, because I've met Yoko many years ago. Right after John had died, I had gone to see Marianne Faithfull and brought a painting as a gift to Marianne, and sure enough, Yoko and a gal friend had walked in right after John had died. I was a young man and approached Yoko, which was kind of, I guess, was a little bit of a chutzpah because she was suffering herself. I showed her the painting of Marianne Faithfull and said to her, I did this painting, what do you think of it, Yoko? And she's like, oh my, it's beautiful. So instead of being discouraged, despondent, outraged, again, grace under pressure, defined. Beautiful. I myself come from Atlantean times. I've always been connected to Atlantis. My mentor has always been my studies of Edgar Cayce, Pisces I might add, and studying him since the early 60s. But you know, with his theories of Atlantis rising and other new lands emerging and land sinking. He was very much ahead of his time himself, but he was certainly the harbinger, the clarion call of what we are now facing in this new common era, which is immense Earth changes. Since 2006, the solar flares are shocking scientists. They weren't really sure, as I've said in previous tapes, what the effect would be, but it's pretty obvious. We have a weakening magnetic field on Earth. The solar flares are facing the Earth as opposed to shooting off in different directions, so as a result, they're coming right at us. The result of that has been, of course, movement in tectonic plates. Now, the word tsunami, of course, is a Japanese word, so the continental shelf off of the coast of Japan is very deep, and they're used to tsunamis. Of course, nothing quite like this that's 9 magnitude and goes 6 miles into the continent. But again, what a lesson in higher consciousness to see how these people are behaving. You know, again, having though been somebody, I'm convinced I come from Atlantean times. Although I was a regular little guy, like everybody else, and rode my Schwinn when I was a kid, and did my track work and ran, and I was very good at it. The coach loved it. My ability to really get a good pace going. But I spent a lot of my downtime at home creating an enormous portfolio of Atlantean images, images of people with giant waves and columns knocking down, enormous waves crashing into people. I have an enormous collection of these pencil drawings that are now 40 years old, but this was something I was connected to since I was a child. I feel I'm here as one of those light workers, those people here to tell you it's inevitable, but it's okay. So, the Earth itself is organic and it's as restless as we are. It's alive and it's okay. But rather than be looking at any of it from a pessimistic point of view, what's going to happen, or are we all going to die? We're not. But look at it, if you can, from a more optimistic point of view. What is happening to all of you? You know what's happening. You're becoming more aware. You're becoming more intuitive. You're turning more to nature. You're getting more in tune with the rhythms of nature. You're getting a sense of extrasensory perception. You're seeing auras. You're understanding how to almost leave your body in projected states. The veil between the worlds is becoming much thinner. And many psychics are just popping up out of the woodwork because I do not stand alone with my colleagues as those that are the uber gifted. Yes, I've perhaps tapped into this at a much earlier age in my lifetime, but you all have it, and it's awakening inside of you. So look on the bright side. Receive these things as gifts, and at the same time, of course, with that absolute grace under pressure. So now you and I stand at the cosmic crossroads, and the new age is officially upon us. It's the beautiful age of Aquarius, and it's going to actually be wonderful. Yes, everything's going to change, but sometimes the old altars of the past have to crash down so that the new crystalline altars of the future can be arranged. There's no reason to be afraid. There's going to be perhaps some loss of life, but you know what? Life is short. Treat every single day like it is a treasure. So, you know, you're opening up to your higher consciousness now. There are sacred places in the world to still visit. There's prayer, which matters. Thoughts or things. Put that prayer out to the earth, out to the people that need it. Celebrate this new era that is coming. Now, 2012 is just the beginning. So naturally, 2011, we all know what's happening in 11s. September 11th, World Trade Towers. January 11th, Haiti. March 11th, the tsunamis in Japan. So we know that 11s always vibrate to something intensely spiritual. They're like these columns that you pass through of time. But, again, the most important message I want to give to you guys is don't be afraid. It's going to be okay. and have courage. Embrace this new vibrational field. You'll grow from it. You'll evolve. It'll begin in 2012, but it will see itself through an entire course till 2033. And the world's going to be a very different place than it was before. It's going to be a better place for our kids and their kids and their kids. You've always got to think 7 generations into the future. What is it going to be like for them? And how could you, in some small way, make it a better world? Sometimes simply by recycling. You're not powerless. You've got something to offer every day. And speaking of this empowerment, this intuitive energy, let's today see what the psychic vibrations have to say on behalf of all of this. Okay, so let's do our traditional Grand Trine read. But this is going to be a powerful one, because we're talking now about this brand new age. And this isn't anymore just some little new age hocus pocus nonsense. This is obviously the big stuff that's coming now. The earth changes, the solar flares, the magnetic poles that are somewhat shifting, and nature responding. And we are nature, so we're responding too. So let's see what we can expect. This may be one of the most powerful reads I've ever done. Vibration number 1 says this. Okay, the vibrational field shows almost like it is a roll of the dice, but life is. However, it's interesting that this is a vibe I've only recently revisited into the deck. I had retired it for 20 years. I felt an urge to revisit it recently, and what did I write on this card? Trust your intuition. Let's go further. What it also has written on it by me is, whatever drastic changes occur along the way, do not be thrown off balance. You can now embrace dominion. Okay, that's pretty potent stuff. Let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 says this. Okay. It's animals, it's nature, it's horses. My God, 100 years ago was our transportation. Things have changed so dramatically in the digital age. But the notion here is, these animals, I call this, this is a very Daniel-esque image, so is this, in my divination, Equestriata cycada. Horses have enlarged pineal glands in their brains. They're very intuitive. They know what you're going to do as you approach them. If you're going to pet them or if you're going to hurt them, they know. So take a tip from nature. Nature knows things. Nature's always trying to tell you something. If you're in tune with nature, you're in tune with the heartbeat of the universe. And, wow, the helix of the pyramid says this. So the highest point of light in the universe today. And this is the one that wants to come out. It says this. Okay. For those of you that do know the traditional arcanum, this is the Four of Wands. The Four of Wands is ruled by Venus and Aries, my heart in a new beginning. They call it completion. But imagine, if you would, what completion is. You rearrange these spokes till they hold a wheel. And what that means is, from completion, you begin. So please, tune into your higher consciousness. It's 2011. We're going to be moving into a very powerful year in 2012. The Earth Dragon. It's very potent. And the dragon is a very powerful symbol in the Asian community. It's a mythological being. It's one of the only signs that's not an animal from the earth, but rather the imagined creature. Our destiny lays before us, but our destiny to some extent is also what we choose it to be. May we all be wise enough to choose the most beautiful, spiritualized, aware and awakened future that we possibly can.